everybody, welcome back to another Sewcialites 3 block video. Today we're working on block number 12, the shoe fly block. This block is from Sherri Holland. This is a very classic quilt block. If you Google shoe fly block history, you can read about it. If you're a new quilter, it's really fun to read some of the articles because you can see that several other quilt blocks use this shape, and with making some tiny changes, you come up with completely different quilt blocks. Color on my printer is a little off today, so your printout probably looks better than this. Let's get started. I'm going to sew the 9-inch block on camera and then the 6-inch block off camera. This is a great beginner quilt block. The first thing we want to do is draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of fabric A. I've done that here for both my fabric A's. Here's my line there. And here I'm using a friction fine liner. It goes away with heat. We're going to take the fabric A and our fabric C. You've got one in each color. It's going to make 2 half square triangle sets, so you'll have them for all 4 corners of your block. So right sides together for that one, right sides together for that one. Let's get some pins. Now we're not going to be sewing down the middle. We're going to be sewing a 1/4 inch away on either side. That way we get our 2 triangles. So you know you're going to cut a 1/4 inch on this side and a 1/4 inch on this side. So I'm going to pin off to the side. Make sure that the pins are out of the way, but I don't want the fabric to move. I want to keep it nice and secure. And since we only have to do a couple of these, I don't mind taking a little extra time to pin. It's not like we're making 100. Got these all pinned. We're going to head over to the sewing machine and sew our lines a 1/4 inch on either side of this line down the middle. Just for fun, I thought I'd show you another vintage machine today. This is a 1927 Singer 66 sewing machine. We found this machine on Craigslist with the sewing cabinet as well. My husband restored it. This can run on the treadles. There's a foot pedal underneath, and you can put the little loop of rubber and it goes down. There's a hole right here and back here, and that'll pull this around as you move the foot pedal back and forth. I have it hooked up to electric. My thread color is different on this one, but that's okay. I'm just going to sew this one block on it. This is Aurifil 2021. It's a nice white, but it's not super white. You can see I've got the diagonal seam tape on this machine as well, and I apologize for any background noise. It's laundry day. I gotta get that laundry done. I'm going to look underneath here. My tape isn't quite as long as I need it, because I'm not sewing on the red, I'm sewing on the black, which is a 1/4 inch away on either side. This machine sounds a little different. So I have one line here. I can tell that that is not straight, but that's okay. We're gonna go with it today. And another line here. Again, it's looking a little crooked. Let's just go with it. One thing that I find when sewing on this machine is you can actually really feel it, and it's hard to keep the fabric straight. I prefer to use the guide foot, which I do have for this machine, but since we were stitching on either side of our line, I couldn't use the guide foot. I could have drawn another line on either side of that center line to kind of help make sure that my stitching is straight. It's actually pretty darn crooked, but let's go ahead and go with it, and let's see how the block turns out. This is all about having fun and stitching our blocks and having a really unique quilt at the end. Over at the cutting table, I'm going to go ahead and take out my pins. Now I'm sewing the 9-inch block. After I cut down the middle right here on that center line that we drew, these half square triangle blocks should measure 3.5 inches square. Let's go ahead and cut down the middle. I'm just going to grab a ruler that I've got sitting on my table. And let's have a look at these. When I press them, I will press to the dark side like that. This should be 3.5 inches square. I'm going to turn this so my diagonal is right here, and I will press these at the ironing board, but I want to have a look, see how I did. Got my ruler here. They're slightly larger than 3.5, which is great because that gives me a chance to trim these down. I'm going to press it first and then we'll trim down a block. I went ahead and grabbed my Kimberly Cuts rotating cutting mat. This is the 5.5-inch square rotating cutting mat. And I do have a 3.5-inch square Creative Grids ruler, so that'll make this a little bit easier. One thing that's very forgiving about blocks like this is, since you know you have the opportunity to trim your half square triangles, if you're worried about them not coming out the right size, instead of cutting them exactly as listed in the pattern, add another 1/4 inch to it. And then you know you're going to have extra that you can trim away. A little bit crooked, which I expect because my seam was crooked, but I'm going to be able to square that up pretty good. It's really close to being exact. It has a couple spots that are just a little bit short, but that's okay, and that's kind of been the theme for me again for this sew along. So I need to go through and trim all of these down to 3.5 inches square. These all trimmed up really nice. For the most part, I was able to trim a little bit off all the way around on all the blocks, so they're going to be almost exact. Let's go ahead and lay out our block. The fabrics that I'm using for the 9-inch block are from the Little Sweetheart and Cloud 9 lines by Aditya Sitar at Laundry Basket Quilts. And I'm also sewing the 6-inch version with Strawberry Lemonade by Sherri and Chelsi of Moda Fabrics. I'll show that block at the end. Here's how you lay out your shoe fly block. Now you'll notice I have a print going on in the background. A lot of times you'll have white or light color. These will be your dark colors, or you can also reverse it to give it a different look. Have a dark color background and white or a light color in the center. If you're working with scraps, all of these pieces can be totally different colors, however you want to lay this out. What I want to do is pin these, and pin these, and then we'll go sew these together. I have all 3 seams sewn together. I'm going to clip the seam that's holding them together, and I'm looking at the picture here for the pressing directions for this block. It's got us pressing to the light. Do you see that? It has you pressing in here, out here, and in here. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to press to the dark so my seams don't show through from underneath the block. So I'm going to press these out, these in toward the darker, and then these out toward the dark. Here's my pieces. I did go ahead and press to the dark, just like I said. We're going to go ahead and put these together. Pin, pin, and pin. And then I'll sew these 3. I have everything pinned and ready to sew. I'm going to sew from way back. I'm reaching around the tripod. You can watch the wheel turn. It'll give you an idea of how this works. Let's sew the next 3 seams. I'm going to take these over to the iron and press again, pressing to the dark. I have all the rows sewn together, just like blocks we've been doing previously, where the seams nest when you lay them down to pin. When you slide them together, you'll feel that seam lock, and you can put a pin there. It's a really great way to help keep your blocks nice and lined up straight, very accurate. Again, this is a great beginner block. If you look online and Google shoe fly quilts, there are a lot of free quilt patterns using the shoe fly block. So if you're a beginning quilter, just starting out, looking for some easy free designs, if you like this block, I would look into that. And of course, you're getting all the free blocks with Sewcialites, which is great. So you can mix and match whichever blocks that you like and even come up with your own designs. Go ahead and pin that. This is big enough working with the 9-inch that I'm actually going to pin both sides at the same time. Flip that there, and then these will just stick up like that while I'm sewing. I'm okay with that. And then I can sew both the 2 final seams, press my block. We'll have a look at it, we'll measure it, and we'll look at and we'll measure my 6-inch block as well. Let's go ahead and sew the final 2 seams. Everything is sewn together. Here's the back so you can see the way that this is all pressed. Everything is pressed to the dark, except for here. I pressed out instead of pressing in because that's the way the fabric wanted to go. Let's go ahead and flip it over and measure it. It looks fairly square. It's a very straightforward block. I think if I would have sewn it on my more modern machines, it probably would have been even better, but this is more fun. Let's go ahead and get the ruler down, line up my 9.5, my 9.5. I have a little bit extra here, and at the top, I can actually square this off. When I look at my block, I can kind of see this piece here is longer than the rest. I don't want to trim too much. This is crooked. I did a bad job cutting that. But we can go ahead and trim off the extra and I won't lose the point there. I'm going to line up a line on my ruler with the seam. Double check this 1/4 inch line. This is nice and straight. This is a little bit extra. Now the side of this block is straight. I can go all the way to the top. Just get rid of a little bit. And since this block is a little bit large, I can go all the way around, have a look at it, see what needs to be trimmed. Anything that needs to go, I can go ahead and trim. This one looks pretty good. I do need to give it a better press and probably let it sit under my clappers. Let's look at the 6-inch block. Here's the back of my 6-inch block. Remember, it's 6.5 inches before you sew it in your quilt. It's really pretty. I love the bright colors of this fabric line, and it's short. Here's my 6.5 inch ruler. So if I line it up here and here, you can see I've got a little space here and a little space there. Most of my blocks, in fact I think all of my blocks so far, are coming up a little short, which is okay. It means they're uniform. It's more of a problem if you've got some short, some big, some exactly the right size. But if you're consistently short or consistently a little bit on the bigger size, you're being consistent, which is good. Let's look at both the blocks. There's my 9-inch, which is currently 9.5 inches. I gave it a light spray with Faultless Heavy Finish spray starch, pressed it and set it under the clappers. Now it's nice and flat. And then here's the one we just looked at, which is the 6.5 inch, 6-inch finished block. Thank you so much for joining me again for Sewcialites 3. This was block 12, the shoe fly block. I will be back next week with block 13. See you next time.